Well, let me begin this message by, I guess it's kind of a question, kind of an exploration, an inquiry on my part, as to whether anyone else here, maybe one or two of you, have found yourself irritated, perhaps a bit agitated, at least somewhat frustrated by the construction on the Bayway Bridge and the detour that goes up periodically. Any hands on that one? One or two maybe that have seen that, and you learn to watch the flashing sign, because God help you if you don't, and everybody comes down and then flips around by the dawn there and you're stuck in it. And we love all you visitors and tourists, believe me, but that just adds to the confusion and the congestion. I know that it adds to probably several hours to my day if on a given day, it's like the lottery, right? You're rolling the dice. On a given day, I have to go from Pass-A-Grille to downtown St. Pete to see someone at the hospital. Well, I have to go all the way up the Gulf Beach, and then you kind of turn up there by... Yeah, by Corey Avenue, you kind of turn up there, and if you're lucky enough not to hit the bridge going up or a car accident, you hope that doesn't happen, then you hit the construction on Pasadena, in South Pasadena, where it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane, and people are doing that. And those of you who know me know I am not always the most patient of drivers. God and I are working on that. But really, has anybody else experienced that? I mean, it is, I don't think I'm alone. Because we'd all like things, let's just admit it, let's be honest, we'd all like things to go smoothly, according to plan. I've got this much in my day, and I want to get this done, this done, this done. It's got to go this way and that way. So I just want people to get out of my way, to get on with their business. Let me get it done so that I can get home, right? Because I'm in a hurry to get my day done so I can get home, because when I get home, I'm going to do nothing. We're in a big toot to get to nothing. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that revealing? The interesting thing, and it's revealed very clearly at Easter, that it's not just, that desire to get somewhere, to make life go the way you want it to think that life, it can be drawn out in a linear line and organized according to us as if the universe revolves around us. The interesting thing that's revealed by Easter so very clearly is that life doesn't work that way, if we're honest. It doesn't work that way, no matter how hard we try. And Easter says, faith certainly doesn't work that way. We'd like to think that faith is something you sign up for, or you take a pill for, or you call upon God for at just the right time and the precise moment, of course, according to our schedule. But the reality is that faith is more often than not about the straight or linear line, the path from here to there that's clear and we understand it. Faith is more about the obstacles we overcome, the detours we learn to navigate, and the construction we must undergo along the way in order to get not where we need to get or to where we think we need to go, but to the place where God desires us to be. That's a whole different way of thinking. That is a whole different way of living your life. That it's not about how you map it out. It's about how you give the map to God and let God work it out. But we're not so much about that. I mean, we don't like interruptions. We don't like things that get in our way. We like to strive to make things happen in the manner and time frame we believe they should happen, even in our faith. And it doesn't matter if you're new to the faith or old to the faith, there is that impetuous impatience within us that we would like to design our lives in order that Jesus follows us rather than us following Jesus. I mean, we like the idea and the concept of Jesus. We like this resurrection thing, this life eternal, this promise of hope, the belief and possibility that we shall rise. We like that. We just don't like the road to that. Because when you trust Jesus to lead your life, you just don't know where it's going to take you. And Easter says that. Easter says Jesus might just take you to the edge of life, beyond life, and back. That the journey can go into the unknown. And even in the unknown, you're safe because Christ is there. The Easter message proclaims this, and we love it. We just don't like the road that takes us there, especially when it has that obstacle, that detour called the cross. And everybody wants Easter. Nobody really wants the cross that gets you there. And I'm pretty sure that the disciples, those who knew Jesus intimately and personally, ate with him, slept with him, were among him for several years, I am absolutely convinced that they did not see the trial or his condemnation as a part of his future, even though he told them that. I am very sure that they did not see the cross and the crucifixion as his final fate. Now, what they really saw when they were kind of putting the pieces together, they saw this ride to the top. They saw this Savior, this Messiah, this Christ, who was a rocket of popularity and a ticket to them having notoriety as well. He was on his way up. You know, they ask him, who's going to sit on your right hand when you get into glory, Jesus? I'm sure that they did not see this cross, which was a huge detour, a roadblock in the midst of their plans. And yet, the funky part is that without the cross, without the detour, without that sidebar, their lives would have remained in their lives Galilean fishermen to the end. And it is the detour that took them through a cemetery on that first Easter morn that not only changed them, but changed the world. You know, on Easter, skeptics and agnostics, when they begin to analyze and criticize and talk about the Easter resurrection story, deride it, they usually do so by trying to disprove any kind of physical resurrection. You know, some time of a physical coming together again and rising from the dead. And I don't argue that with them because there is no proof. There's no winning that argument. It is a discussion of faith, an affirmation of faith that you either accept or you do not. There is no proof. But what there is proof of, and what I cling to with all my heart, is that somehow, in some way, between the point before the crucifixion and Easter, after the Easter resurrection, the disciples changed. That the Gospels tell us before Easter, they ran in fear. They hid in the darkest corners they could go to. They were afraid that that would be their fate as well. And yet the Gospels also tell us that after Easter, they were different. They were changed. That they were no longer afraid or cowering. They were bold and they were courageous, and they felt called to preach the good news that they had experienced on that Easter day. You see, what they thought needed to be a linear line from point A to point B suddenly was different. And yet it was what they saw as a needless detour that in the end made all the sense in the world. And the world is better because of it. Now, I'm not trying to say in any way or justify or rationalize disruptions or tragedies in our lives. But somehow we try to live as though we can avoid the heartaches or the hurts or the pains or the suffering, that somehow we should be exempt and that God should get us around those and God is responsible for those, when in reality sometimes those detours are what refine the gold within us, that make us and give us the character that we need. I mean, who here is not better because of some situation that you overcame? Who here has not had those moments when you walk through the valley of the shadow, when you faced something that seemed like it was going to crush you, and you not only survived, but you thrived, you became better, you became more compassionate, you became more caring, you began to see the world with different eyes, eyes you would never see it from or with, had you not gone through that experience. You see, God can take anything and use everything if we allow ourselves and put ourselves all in. And that is what we really remember. When we seek to control life but trust God to live our lives, when we no longer try to avoid facing the detours or rush around them, but rather accept that Christ can lead us through them and even bring great things from them, then we experience the resurrection. Not someday, not in the eternal. We experience the resurrection power here and now today. And isn't that what you want? I mean, isn't that what we kind of yearn for? What draws us here is to experience that power of the divine that is going to empower us in a way that we cannot get anywhere else. In the mid-1800s, in the last several centuries ago actually now, there is a little-known but rather interesting religious movement. It was a missionary movement about 1830, 1840. These missionaries were going to distant parts of the world, Asia, Africa, different parts of the world, and they were given the name, and it wasn't sarcastic and it wasn't trivial. They were given the name one-way missionaries. They were given the name one-way missionaries not because of any religious, theological perspective or exclusivity. They were called one-way missionaries because they took all their belongings, when they left on their trip, they took all their belongings and instead of putting them in a suitcase, they packed them in a casket. They packed them in a casket because they knew that when they embarked on that trip, they were never coming back. They weren't afraid of it, mind you, and they looked forward to it. They just knew that things were different, and they put everything, they died to themselves to give their lives to Christ. And because of that, they lived very purposeful, adventurous existence. A.W. Milne was one of these missionaries. And he was one who set sail for the South Pacific. And he went to an island, a remote island in the South Pacific that many had gone to before, and none had left alive because his calling was to a tribe that was headhunters. But he wasn't afraid because within his spirit, he'd already died to the notion that he was in charge and needed to plan everything else out. In other words, his coffin was packed. And he lived among those people for 35 years. In fact, he died among those people. Not a violent death, a natural death. He died among those people. And when he died, the villagers took his body, buried it in a place of honor in the center of the village, erected a tombstone, and on that tombstone inscribed the words, "When he came, there was no light. When he left, there was no darkness." Wow. It's like Paul said, I am absolutely convinced that neither death nor life, neither powers in heaven nor powers on earth, neither what happens today nor anything that can happen tomorrow ultimately can separate us from the power of this resurrected Christ. All you have to do is get in. Such is the detour of Easter. A few years back, being somebody who likes rock and roll, I remember the song by Supertramp called Supertramp. There's a biblical name, right? Jezebel, I guess, huh? But the band Supertramp had a song called Take the Long Way Home. Easter's kind of that way. It's kind of the long way. But it's the best way because it's God's way. And so as you go home today, and you may wish to write some of these down or think about them, but I challenge you to take the Easter message and don't put it off as something until next year, and don't put it off as something until someday eternally, but as something you can incorporate into your life today, to live it, to believe that it makes a difference, that it matters. It isn't just a bunch of words in an old-time story. So consider these things. Consider that you quit living as if the purpose of your life is to arrive safely at death. Live so that you set God-sized goals and pursue God-ordained passions. Go after a dream that is destined to fail without divine intervention. Keep asking questions. Keep making mistakes. Keep seeking God. Stop pointing out problems and become part of the solution. Stop repeating the past and start creating God's future. Stop playing it safe, start taking risks, expand your horizons, accumulate experiences, and enjoy the journey. Find every excuse you can to celebrate everything you can every day. Live like today is the first day and the last day of the rest of your life. Don't let what's wrong with you keep from worshiping what's right with God. Burn sinful bridges, blaze new trails. Don't let your fear dictate your decisions. Take a flying leap of faith. Quit holding out, quit holding back. Push all of your chips to the middle of the table and ante up your life. Go all in, go all out. Let Christ lead you. Dare to follow Him rather than asking Him to follow and bless you. You won't know where it will take you. It might take you to the cross and the tomb and through it all. You don't know. But what you do know and what you can be assured of is that you will make a difference, and it's going to be a great ride. He is risen. Thank God He has risen indeed. Amen.